This is where Wisconsin wakes up. It's Daybreak with Brian Noonan and Jamie Martinson. Here are your hosts, Brian and Jamie.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Civic Media Network. It is 6 minutes after 6 now. My name is Jamie Martinson.
Good morning. I'm Brian Noonan. We'd love to have you jump in and be part of the show today. 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Let's start with a question brought to mind by our own senior producer, Frank. As an adult, is there something that you like to search for? The hunt. And I'm not talking about deer hunting or turkey hunting or any of that. I'm talking about a specific item that you love to hunt for. Maybe you're a Pokemon person. Maybe you're a bourbon person. Maybe whatever it is that you like to search for. And it gives you a weird thrill. Because we all have those I used to, when Beanie Babies were a thing, Debbie, my wife, had me searching because I was on the road all the time. So every small Hallmark store, every drugstore, through wherever I was, it was the hunt for certain Beanie Babies. And it became fun. And when you found one, it was very exciting.
It's like an adrenaline rush.
It is an adrenaline rush. It's that thing you're like, I found it. I found the one thing that nobody else can. And Frank had that yesterday, and I'm having a little FOMO. I'll admit to a little green-eyed monster.
You know what? As you should.
I sent 100%.
I sent that picture to everybody I know that sips bourbon and collects.
Yes.
I wanted to be the center of attention.
And
then
I
got to bring it home, and I got to line it up with its friends. And then
Did you open it at all or no?
Not yet.
Okay.
I might crack it open this weekend. I'm not a weeknight sipper.
I think if I found, and you can explain what we're talking about, but I think if I found one that I'd been searching for that long, I would want to take a sip. It would be like, okay, I know I'm not drinking this on a daily basis, but I found it. I'm going to enjoy it. That's where my collecting veers off from some people.
It'll be a probably tomorrow night sip. So what happened? Yeah. So what happened is, one of my friends lives in Louisville, so like an hour away from like the Bourbon Trail. So we went down and visited him and went to different distilleries, and it was really fun. It was cool to hop around, taste different things, and just hang out. We had a big party that day. It was a lot of fun. So since then, I've been looking for bottles just to add to my collection. So for when people come over, they can taste other things too. So Weller Antique, which is a very hard bottle to come by, but a lot of people love it. Brian and I were just having this conversation, 2 days ago?
I think so, yeah. Because I finally got to try it on
You
Saturday.
finally got to try it, and Brian goes, man, that's my favorite one. I was like, cool, that's the one I cannot find for the past 2 years. So I went for a walk yesterday because Lord knows my body needs the exercise. And I moved to a new neighborhood, which I think I've said on this show before, and I walked past a liquor store. There's nobody in it, and I walk in, and it had everything.
Wow.
And I mean everything. And when I say everything, everything at MSRP list price. Because usually, Jamie, with these rare bourbons, they're going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Right.
Because it becomes some people call them liquor store museums.
Sure. Of course, because they are so rare. Yes, yeah, because they're rare enough that people don't necessarily just jump in and go grab them. I get it.
So it's like, cool, you could have this bottle. It's for $400. So I get a price in my head, and I go, if I find this for the right price, I'm going to grab it.
Okay. So
sure enough, I walk in, and I see it. I grab it off the shelf, and the guy tells me they've been sitting there for months.
What?
Of course.
And I couldn't believe it. I felt like an idiot. But now I have my spot.
You got it.
There you go.
That
And
sounds
the
like
rush
place
is
to go.
gone. And my wife comes home and goes, you got it. I said, I did. She goes, the search is over. I said, well, the search is never over.
You just move on to the next
You just
thing,
move on
right?
to the next one.
Of course.
Wow.
We've got Cindy chiming in over on the text line this morning, listening on WMDX. She says she hunts geocaches worldwide. She's currently working toward 14,000.
I don't know what that is.
Geocaches
I'm not familiar.
Geocaches are a little bit like a treasure hunt, literally, where you're given some sort of coordinates and you actually have to go find like little people leave like little trinkets behind, and then you can leave things, and then it's actually a lot of fun. We used to do it with our kids when they were really, really little because they, they would get trinkets along the way. But 14,000, does that mean 14,000 stops along the way, or does that mean just 14,000 like perusing the websites? Like, because 14,000 geocaching sites would be holy buckets. That would be a lot. That would be a lot.
Travel.
It is a lot of travel. So kudos to you, Cindy, for doing that much travel and having 14,000 potential geocaches. That's really cool.
That's a long-term one. Frank's search for the bourbon is a long-term one. I think we've all probably done short-term ones where it's like, I know this exists, or I think this exists, and I'm going to find it today. When we first took Molly down to visit Tulane, they make the beads that have all the like insignias for all the colleges and all the pro teams, and every gift shop in the French Quarter has 1 million of them. Well, the only college missing was Tulane, and I thought there's got to be. We spent, and I wish I was exaggerating, probably 6 hours walking around the French Quarter, going into every single gift store until we finally found one. The last one in the quarter that had the Tulane insignia on it.
So did you buy it?
Of course we did. It's still hanging in our kitchen.
Checking.
Oh, yeah. No, I just found it and went, okay,
cool.
I was right.
Well, I don't know if
one.
it was like a point of pride thing. We're like, that's right. Tulane has one too.
Well, there was a copyright thing, and that's what some of the gift shops were telling us. Oh, yeah, they didn't have their trademark or their copyright or whatever.
Lawyers.
And so there's only, we found the one.
I was going to say, when you said that seemed very odd that there had to be more to that, because Tulane is located in the area, that you would think that would be a point of pride. That
you
there
would
be
think
a
so.
lot of,
a lot of LSU stuff.
I was going to say, after sifting through 1 million LSU beads.
Yeah, but yes, we found it. It's still on display. Well, congratulations, Frank. Now, let me ask.
Yeah.
Because I've had this, and I'm sure everybody else has, when you finally find it, as elated as you are in the moment, then there has to be a sadness or disappointment that comes in because
the hunt's over.
Yeah, you're done.
I don't know if
your life is finished.
I don't know if it's a sadness. It's more of a relief.
Okay.
It's a temporary relief. As you know, you move on to the next one. I also have a theory that once a collector, always a collector. And that's not just in one specific thing. Like, I grew up collecting baseball cards, still have them. Pokemon cards, still have them. Sports memorabilia, once I got
some money,
still have them. Yeah. So I think I might either move on to the next hobby, or I'll just choose a different bottle to hunt down now.
Man, oh man.
Never ends, Brian.
It never, no, that's very good. Parker, do you collect anything?
No, I'm trying to think of what I even would, because I've never really been into collecting all that much. And I don't.
Are you
know
into anything that much? You seem very seem very passive on most things.
I am passive on most things. I can be easily convinced, Brian.
Like I just convinced you that you're passive on most things.
Yeah,
that's why we like you, Parker, just in case we need somebody to go do something.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to convince you.
And it doesn't take much. That's the beauty of it.
No, it doesn't. If you need a dangerous stunt done, I'm your guy, Frank.
You keep volunteering that, Parker, and as the weather gets warmer, we'll be sending you out.
We will.
That's fine. Hey, easily convinced.
Wow.
We've got some more people chiming in this morning. Alicia over on our YouTube chat this morning says she collects books. Yes, I have a lot of books myself. I don't know if I'm a collector. I'm just I try to be an avid reader, except now I'm old and I fall asleep. Cindy clarifies on the text line this morning that is 14,000 visits, each logbook signed along the way. all 50 states and so much more. She says it is absolutely her addiction. Good
Wow.
for you.
That's a
I
great
love that.
addiction, though.
That's pretty
Isn't
cool.
that
Yeah.
awesome?
That's awesome.
That plus geocaching is super fun because you do get out and you get to see a lot of really cool stuff. Because sometimes the geocaches are really buried somewhere, so you've got to really like get into the intricate parts of cities or areas, and so it can be a whole lot of fun. We haven't done it in a very long time.
Boy, I got to
don't
look into that. I've never heard of this. This is wild.
Geocaching is super fun. I collect shoes, is what my husband would tell you.
Really?
That's about all I collect. Shoes. I'm a shoe person. I don't like to shop. I hate clothes shopping. You put me in a shoe store though, I'm a happy
Really?
girl. Yes, I love shoes. I'm always trying to find shoes. That is my thing.
Any specific kind of shoes?
Here's the thing. It used to be whatever I found to be cute and comfortable, and then I got old and I got plantar fasciitis in both feet. So when you have plantar fasciitis on both sides, your tastes have to change just a little bit. And so I'm a Birkenstocks girl. Always have been.
Of course.
And so I have lots of Birkenstocks all the way from the sandals to the shoes. And I do a lot of barefoot shoes now. I love barefoot shoes.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Those the one with the toes?
No, barefoot shoes are basically, they are made to be like you would naturally stand. So they don't always
Is that
have
like
a lot
the
of arch
Earth
support.
shoes from the 70s where the heel was lower and you remember those, Jamie?
I don't.
Maybe.
Oh,
These
you're
are
young,
usually flat. The sole on them is usually only about 6 to 8 millimeters. Maybe if you're really into the barefoot world, it's even less than that because it's essentially like walking barefoot. But the shoes have come a long way and they're super awesome now. And so between my Birkenstocks and my barefoot collection, I'm a happy girl. And in fact, most of my barefoot shoes, people wouldn't even guess they are because they look so much like a regular shoe. We'll put that in air quotes. But
Sounds
I
like you
do-
got hippie feet.
Well, that's what my husband would tell you. He'd say that he would tell you that I should be dancing in a field of daisies somewhere, and I would be a very happy camper. He's like, if Woodstock was a thing every day, you'd probably be there.
Oh yeah, Brian, add my collection of Jordans to the list.
Wow.
I think I'm just a psycho.
Well, you've got, now that you got some scratch, you're collecting good things.
Do I though? Do I have some scratch?
No, you're working for Civic, of course.
Rim shot,
Absolutely
please.
not.
Boom. We kid.
There we go.
There it
You
is.
kid. So yeah, well, that's I'm happy for you, Frank.
Thank you.
I'm going to update everybody tomorrow. I've started a bachelor weekend.
Ooh,
I am now
that's right.
alone
Debbie's
with
gone.
the dogs. Yeah, so
Ooh.
the wildness has started already.
Were
Ate
you in bed by
leftovers
like
last
8:30
night.
last night?
No, well, I got to stay up to take the dogs out because now I got to worry about. I have to keep an eye on them, listening throughout the morning to go. All right, because we'll see if they sleep later because Debbie's not here.
Is it
'Cause they
crazy?
don't-
It's always crazy to me when like Corey isn't home because it does throw a wrench in everything, right? Because the dogs become a different point of contention because then you
Mhm.
have to plan differently for them.
Yes.
So I always find it actually annoying when he's not home because I don't have that extra set of hands.
I don't. Solitude is my friend.
All right.
So it will be a fun weekend. Listen, we got a lot to get to, including surprise, surprise. ICE wasn't telling the truth in Minneapolis. We'll get to that and so much more. This is Daybreak. I'm Brian Noonan.
I am Jamie Martinson. It is 6:19 right now, and this is the Civic Media Network.
All facts, no fiction. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it. It's 6:22 right now, and if you want to join the conversation today, whether by phone or text, we'd love to hear from you. 1-855-752-4842, 1-855-75-CIVIC. And remember, you can also check us out online. We've got a couple social media pages on Facebook and Instagram. Go give us a follow, and you can catch up with all of the things that we're talking about here and some of the things that we do in our spare time. My name is Jamie Martinson.
Good morning. I'm Brian Noonan. Would it surprise you, Jamie, to learn that ICE was not forthcoming with all of their reporting from Minneapolis?
Shocker.
I think most of us would share that same sentiment. A newly released city camera video from Minneapolis is shedding light on the moments leading up to a shooting involving an ICE agent and two Venezuelan immigrants in January and why the agency's initial account eventually fell apart. Oh, we are so surprised. Julio Cesar Sosa Celis, who was shot by a federal agent, and his cousin Alfredo Alhorna were facing federal charges after DHS said they violently attacked an agent, prompting him to fire a defensive shot. Well, the Justice Department, as has happened many times, ended up dropping the charges in February, and ICE said 2 of its agents who made false statements about the incident under oath were placed on administrative leave. There are cameras everywhere, boys and girls, and if you are lying, you will be caught. It was a 9-minute video. It shows a struggle lasting about 12 seconds. That's enough to shoot somebody. Between a federal agent and 2 men, it appears to contradict the agent's account that he was engaged in a struggle for about 3 minutes before shooting, and that somebody came at him with a shovel.
Wow.
Yeah. The details get crazier than that, Jamie.
They do, because it also... DHS repeated claims that this agent was violently struck with a snow shovel or a broomstick, one of the two. One of the men pictured in the video appears to be holding a shovel that he drops before the struggle actually starts, and then that shovel can be seen on the ground, which was very snowy at the time, for the duration of the encounter. So the U.S. Attorney's Office is now investigating this. The agents who made untruthful statements about the incident could potentially face termination or criminal prosecution. I just love that there's a debate about it. Maybe they'll face some sort of punishment.
Could be.
We don't know. Who knows? But the
I like that the U.S. attorney put untruthful statements in quotes. I think is that like the legalese for they lied through their teeth?
Yes, of
Okay.
course. That's
All
of
right.
course what it is. So this incident took place during that months-long Twin Cities deployment, Operation Metro Surge. We remember the details vividly, even though it's another one of those incidents where it feels like it was 3 years ago, and it's
sure
actually
does.
only been a couple of months now at this point.
Right.
More than 4,000 undocumented immigrants were arrested during that particular operation. And we know that former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, she liked to lie about a lot of the incidents that happened during Operation Metro Surge. She described the men's actions at the time as an attempted murder of federal law enforcement. Wow.
Well, that's at least that's off her change from her old script of calling them domestic terrorists, because we know the guys took down the Twin Towers with snow shovels. That's what terrorists look like. They get in there. I feel like I'm being terrorized every time I have to go out and shovel, quite frankly, but I don't think it's the same thing. I'm like, oh, we're letting the terrorists win. And that terrorist is Mother Nature. But yeah, it's again the audacity of this agency, and it continues. They decide to make untruthful statements a lot, but it's so gratifying when they are proven beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
Here's the video. Well, don't believe that video. No, I'm going to believe the video. I see the shovel on the ground. How did he hit you with the shovel? And this whole thing took 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Not 3 minutes.
Do you find it odd that these events in Minneapolis were literally just 60 days ago or so? And that stories like what happened in Minneapolis between the killing of Alex Preddy, Renee Good, and, even other events that have happened in this current timeline, like the Epstein files, just all of a sudden have faded completely from anybody's conversation. Nobody's talking about these things anymore because all of a sudden the president catapulted us into a war. So we've just forgotten about all of this other stuff.
Well, I think the only thing I would say is we may not be talking about it, but I don't think most of us forgot about it. I will be honest, though. After, Alex Purdy and Renee Good are the two big takeaways and horrible, horrible incidents from that whole occupation of Minneapolis. And so I had forgotten that these guys got shot, too.
Yeah.
And they got shot after, because they got shot in January, and the other stuff happened before. But yeah, the news cycle is so fast, and we do, not that we get bored with a story, but it's like, as important as this story is, okay, they pulled out of Minneapolis for the most part. oh my God, look at what's happening over here. We don't have a minute to take a breath. So we have to jump from one thing to another. And unfortunately, the next thing is always bigger and more outrageous. And so it does grab our attention.
Don't you think that's by design, though? Because when they do that, that means that less attention is put on the things that are vile that we're already opposed to, or a lot of us are, I should say. It means we're also asking fewer questions. The press is asking fewer questions, and there's less pressure for them to actually have to answer anything, which means these things aren't actually going away. It's just that we focus our attention on something else, why the administration gets to dabble in something else, why the rest of us are like, oh, well, that shiny object is gone. Let's go over here now. And that's what I think is really disappointing, and why I think that I think it's sad that the press also falls for it, right? Because there used to be a day and a time when the press wouldn't fall for that. They'd continue to hunt down the big story and continue to dive in. And
well, where do you discern which is the big story? I mean, there's still people talking about Epstein, and Epstein will never go away. Those files will come to light. There will be accountability for that, because I don't know what the statute of limitations is on those kind of crimes, but I'm guessing it's longer than the rest of his term. So we might have some. Hey, it's 6:30. We've got things to do, and then we'll talk about the rabies. Rabies.
From Lake Superior to Lake Michigan, this is Wisconsin's Morning Conversation. Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. The sun coming up in downtown Madison right now. Hopefully it's sunshiny where you are today. We're still going to see some warmer temperatures across the state. I was looking at the forecast over the next few days, Brian. It looks like we're going to kind of stay in the 60s, maybe even into the 70s. And is this actual spring? Maybe. Fingers crossed. I never get too excited this time of year.
I was watching the 7-day forecast last night, and it gets we get some 40s coming in early in the week. So
of course,
let's enjoy. Let's enjoy today.
Don't burst my bubble, Brian.
At this point in the timeline of the world, we're not really guaranteed tomorrow, ever. So especially now, who knows? Things are as we start getting into headlines at the top of the hour.
There could be more world civilization ending social media posts later today. We have no idea what the day is going to bring.
So if it's going to be near 60 or 70 today, let's just soak it up. Let's enjoy it. Frank,
it.
open that bottle. Open that bottle of Weller's, because
sit on that new deck when it's done, and you have a good time.
I don't know what you're saving it for. Armageddon? Gonna toast the horsemen as they come in? No, this is well, listen, we're in the midst of the weirdest timeline ever. Our Secretary of Health and Human Services, you know him, he works out in blue jeans. He eats whales. He drops dead bears off in the
coming.
wood.
Did you know that?
I did, only because you said it, only because you mentioned it before. This is a real thing.
It is a real thing.
A government official is going to have a podcast.
Yes. In fact, RFK is going to be launching this podcast to expose what he says are the lies that have made Americans sick. That is what the podcast is all about. Just in case.
So he's going to finally say that it's good to have vaccines, and so the lie that people say not to get vaccinated he's going to expose that?
I don't know what he's going to do over there. It's RFK. He'll have blue jeans on. He'll probably be topless in it. Maybe Kid Rock will come and do some push-ups, and they can expose this guy.
But everybody, I'm going to tell you the truth about everything. It's very hard. There's a lot of vaccines and stuff. Well, he controls the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, too, and they've been trying to get rid of vaccines and tests and stuff. Well, now they've expanded their list of tests the agency has either paused or stopped because at its infectious disease laboratories. One of them, I don't think about rabies a lot, but I guess here in Wisconsin.
Because there's medicines and there's shots and there's medical treatment for it.
Yeah, and I also don't hang around a lot of wild animals that might have rabies. I'm not where bats are. I don't let raccoons come up and nibble on me. I don't put I guess I'm not in the high risk group to get rabies. But there was a list of 31 tests that includes common diseases like COVID-19 and influenza and rare infections from certain parasites. But the latest update added tests to diagnose rabies in humans, and that's the one that got a lot of buzz because everybody's like, why would we stop testing for rabies? Well, why wouldn't we stop testing for rabies? Should be your question.
Because RFK is going to expose the lies on this podcast. That's why.
Hi, guys.
Why.
Welcome. This week, we're going to talk about rabies and why it's a fallacy made up by radical Democrats and the woke snowflakes.
Sadly, you're not too far off as far as what I think this is going to be.
No, it's listen, I know everybody thinks I'm joking all the time about this stuff, but as we proved yesterday, a lot of my jokes are deadly accurate.
Yes.
On what's actually happening. So here in Wisconsin, I guess we're more at risk for rabies because you're out in the woods more. I don't know why. But Alan Bateman is the director of the Communicable Disease Division at the Wisconsin State Laboratory of Hygiene. Who even knew it existed? He said the anti-mortem or before-death human test is not typically how rabies cases are diagnosed. He said the standard practice, I don't know why I stress it like that, like we should doubt what he says. I have no reason to doubt what Alan Bateman says. He says that standard practice is to test the animal in question, which is done by the state lab. Bateman said that they test several thousand animals, mostly bats and dogs, every year for the disease. Oh, I forgot about dogs and rabies.
Yeah. I mean, if you, especially if you live out in the country, right? And your dogs do a little bit more free roaming or they run around or something like that, they always have the chance of encountering one of those rabid raccoons, as you were mentioning, that you don't let.
Yeah, but what about a bat?
Face.
Then they turn into Cujo.
This is true.
That are foaming and they're coming after you and trying to break in your car windows. I know, Parker, don't laugh.
I hated that movie. That movie
serious
terrified
business.
me.
Serious business. Yeah, well, see, it did its job.
terrifying.
It was supposed to terrify you. Yeah, big Saint Bernard trying to kill you because he's all rabid from a bat.
St. Bernards are so sweet and just lovable. And they're supposed to save people. Cujo was a frightening, frightening movie. I hated that movie.
Your thoughts on Cujo, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Have you ever had a rabid dog try to break your car windshield?
No, not recently, but it was a terrifying
good.
movie. But I digress. Anyway,
That's
back
all
to the
right.
CDC.
Aggressions are fun.
But I think this is an interesting story because it's good that we have labs here in the state of Wisconsin who can actually step up and do what the CDC is not doing and
Right.
can be trusted nationally. But here's what concerns me the most. When we're talking about this, that means that we're essentially at a point where we've sidelined the CDC. That's been a gold standard for decades. When something new popped up between rare diseases, outbreaks, unknown infections, you knew that the CDC was going to lead the change on things like testing, the research, all of the guidance. And now we're talking about dozens of tests that are being paused, are being cut back, and we're essentially having to farm out that work that the CDC did.
Yeah.
Because of this administration and their war on vaccines and people being healthy and whatever rhetoric you want them to throw out, they have thrown out. I mean, everything from, injecting bleach and sunlight to get rid of COVID. I mean, it's all been lies. And these vaccines are researched. They change because the research continues. And that's what I think troubles me more about any of this story.
Yeah, it's that stupid people who are unqualified are now in positions of power that can affect the health and safety of everybody in this country. The good news is that, as we're mentioning, Wisconsin does have the ability to run these tests. According to the director, he said that we still in Wisconsin have access to testing through a national network of state labs called the Association of Public Health Laboratories. Some of the larger labs specialize in providing certain tests. Wisconsin is the go-to testing location for some vaccine-preventable diseases for about a quarter of the country. So even if the federal government is poo-pooing vaccines and doubting science, there are still dedicated scientists and doctors who are doing it. And thankfully, some of them are right here. So we We should be okay until the feds start cracking down on states being able to do this themselves and saying, no, we told you, you don't need these tests. You don't need these vaccines. Well, let us decide that.
I think too, the labs that we have here, I think that's fantastic. I think that the fact that we can continue some of this research right here in Wisconsin is pretty darn cool. I mean, if you're a science person and believe opposite of what this administration does, I think it's awesome that work can continue here. But I also start thinking about the collaboration that these state labs do with the CDC. Some of the really hard cases, some of those rare ones, and where it relies on a whole different level of expertise that you only get at that maybe national, international level that the CDC could hang its hat on for so long. So what really happens then at that point when you have some of that information coming in and there's really nobody to put out the guidance that the CDC has done in the past? I mean, state labs are great. I'm assuming that Wisconsin is not the only state with these labs that can do some of this hard work. And I'm thankful for that, especially when we live in the times that we do, where there is such a war on medicine and science. But at the same time, the CDC is still, or was, it was supposed to be the method for all of this, and we don't have any of that. We don't have that sort of guidance anymore. And what happened to the other thing I think about is what happened to all of the data that the CDC had collected over the years? Where is that right now? Because I don't trust this administration to
not destroy it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because anything that's there before, and this is since Trump took office a year ago, the amount of downsizing at the CDC has been radical. They've been agency lost about a quarter or to a third of their staff last year. That's according to NPR. So it is it's not beyond thought that they would have said, listen, we're not going to need this anymore. All this science, all the results, all the testing that we've done in the past to come up with these guidelines. Well, again, and we remember the uproar. We talked about it when they put the list of school vaccines that are no longer. Now it's up to the parents to make those decisions. How many parents went to law school? My parents were pretty smart. My mom's still pretty smart. But they were not doctors.
No.
There's a lot of smart people who aren't doctors, who aren't scientists, who didn't devote their lives to figuring this stuff out. But we're going to let, and yes, don't come at me. Parents should have input. I'm a parent. I had input. The doctor told me how he was going to vaccinate my daughter, and I said, "What are these for?" And he explained them, and I went, "Oh yeah, I don't want her to have rickets. That's pretty cool. Why don't we give her? Why don't we give her a vaccine for rickets?" So yeah, parents have always had some sort of input, but they also trusted science.
Yes, and I think too, there is a trust issue for most Americans because a lot of us expect that our federal public health system is going to be there, that it's going to lead, that it's going to provide answers. I mean, I even think back to when we've had things like different influenzas. I remember when like swine flu was a thing and we had to do the vaccines in like mass in public locations because we had to push out those vaccines so quickly. When that confidence starts to slip, it's going to create this uncertainty when we actually need clarity a whole lot. And I think our state-run labs probably need that sort of clarity and guidance. And when we look at the labs here in Wisconsin, there's strong infrastructure, and there's still reliance on the national support, though, to make sure that they have what they need and the research and the information they need to continue their work. And when that starts to weaken, that's going to put more pressure on every state lab trying to continue the work that the federal government is no longer willing to do or accept. And I think that's where we should be fearful as to, and God forbid we ever have anything like another COVID-19 pandemic. But I even look at the latest strain that's going around. We don't have any guidance on this strain.
Nope.
Because there's nobody doing the research. We don't
Because
actually
it's fake news, Jamie. Just drink some bleach.
I was just going to say, is this where the bleach in the sunlight comes back in?
That's
because
right. Shove a
I'm
light
not
bulb up your
trusting that.
backside. That's how you do it.
I mean, it's all of those things that go into what the CDC did. It's not just the really hard reaching research, and it's not just the rare stuff. It's sort of those everyday things like the latest influenza strain too. That people end up getting and needing vaccines for. Because here's the thing: not everybody's going to be able to fight this stuff off. Right. Some people are immune compromised, and they're not going to have a choice. They need the medicine to keep themselves healthy.
Well, and the thought is, well, Kennedy will be gone one of these days. The next administration comes in, they actually put somebody with some medical background in that job. But by
3
then,
years.
I know. By then, how much research, how much time have we lost trying to figure it out? How much damage has been done to the public health by a guy who drinks infected water and thinks raw milk is the way to go? When we come back, oh my goodness, we are going to talk about something that Jamie collects, going back to this, and some students. It's the Civic Media Network.
Local news, community stories, and the conversations that matter most. Now, more Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
6:52 right now. Boy, this morning is flying by. Holy buckets. We're already in the last segment of our first hour.
It's because it's sunny.
Is that what it is?
I think so, because I could see the sun at like 17 minutes after the hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Quick.
We'll go with that. It is 6:52 right now. This is Daybreak on the Civic Media Network. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. The other day, we were trying to remember if we talked about this actually on the air or the secret show within the show that you listen to on the stream if you're watching us either on YouTube or our fancy new Facebook page. Ooh. Are we on that Facebook page yet, or is it still the Civic Media Facebook page?
Just the Civic Media Facebook page right now, April 22nd.
All right.
The day. I believe we have a date.
Are we going to have a launch party?
Ooh,
we can do a launch party.
Big launch party?
Should we have like the first person to watch the live stream on the new Facebook get something? I don't know.
We'll think about that.
Yeah,
we'll come up with
all right. I like that. Put it in the notes for the post-show meeting.
That's right.
Because our on-air meetings never really pan out the way that I hope they will. So we'll do it the post show. But either way, it was election day on Tuesday. You know that. And if you go and you vote, you get the little sticker. And most of the time, the little stickers are just the boring "I voted," and they got the little check mark or the red, white, and blue or whatever. And that's fine. And I always wear mine just for the day. Jamie, though, you don't. You, unlike and this is going to surprise probably no one. What do you do with your stickers?
So since I started voting at the ripe old age of 18, I have kept my stickers, and I put them on a piece of paper, and I write the date that I voted and who the major candidate was, because I really do respect the voting process. Now, I also understand that in this current administration, things are a little tipsy as far as how that's going to look. But I also think that's why I also find it more vitally important now than I ever have, because there is so much rhetoric around voting that it actually makes me excited to look back and be like, look, I voted in South Dakota. I voted in Minnesota. I voted in Wisconsin. There was never an issue until now. And I will say that when I went to vote on Tuesday, instead of the regular, I voted like the little like oblong-y oval-shaped one. I got a great big silver and shiny round one. And I was like, ooh, this is going to take up like a quarter of my little book. So I was stoked, I have to tell you.
So where's all that money coming from for those upgraded stickers? That's what I want to know. Because that sounds I've never seen one like that.
It was very big and shiny, and I was so excited.
Go outside, nerd.
Thank you, Parker.
Uncle Baby Billy jumping in. Very nice.
Wow.
It's well, the good thing with your nerddom right there is that you have receipts to go back and go, I didn't vote for them. I did not. Here's my sticker. Here's my documentation. Next, you're going to start adding a picture of you voting, proof of life, holding up a newspaper with that date, so we know that it's legit. And you didn't just steal a roll of stickers somewhere and just make up your own sticker book. The reason I thought of this is, the village of Shorewood the other day had a whole new bunch of I voted stickers, a set
I'm
of
so jealous.
33 different ones. This would you would have tried to voter fraud, wouldn't you? All 33. You would have tried to get all 33.
I would have paid money to get all 33. I would have been like, I'll pay you for each of those stickers because I think that this is super cool that they were able to do this in Shorewood.
I would love to have seen you outside the polling place harassing people who voted to get their stickers. Do you have the vampire squid? Oh, you got the block of cheese, the flower and the butterfly, the lake, fish and trees. Those are all real things on there. And they either said, I voted or I voted today. It sounds, would a kid make those? Yes.
Yes.
School kids made them in Shorewood at the 2 public elementary schools because the village clerk wanted to get more personalized voter stickers, the kind that show Shorewood pride. She said, well, they told her that was too much money. You can't have that kind of money. So she went, who's doesn't care. Kids. She went to art teachers at 2 of Shorewood's the 2 public elementary schools, and they had a contest. But then the kids were so excited about it, she went, well, we're not crowning a winner. We're using all 33 of these stickers.
I love it.
Yes. So all of them are there. Jamie, maybe you can buy some on the secondary market.
Ooh. I'm going to have to get a hold of this clerk, see if she's got any extras, see if she's willing to part with them. Because, here's the thing, too. We see these types of things happen in the school districts all the time, but they do usually make it contests. And
Yes.
why that's very cool, I love that this particular village clerk was like, no, these kids went to a lot of work. We're going to make sure that they all get seen. And what I also love about this is it also makes these kids excited about the voting process, right?
Yes.
Especially at a time when our rights are a little in flux because of this administration. So I love that they made it part of the voting process, and that just gets them all the more excited. And can you imagine the kids saying, Mom, Dad, you have to go vote because you might get my sticker?
You might get my sticker.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good way to get Mom and Dad to the polls.
And they did have one of those contests in Milwaukee for the city of Milwaukee's election commission, but they were broken up into grades, like kindergarten to 3rd grade, then 4th to 7th, and 8th to 12th, and that was for their I Voted Early campaign. So those, because there were so many, they did have to feature. They did have to pick some winners, but those had a sunbathing cow, a rainbow, a bald eagle, and a bird soaring in the sky.
Love it.
You got to
Love
collect
it.
them all, Jamie. What they ought to do is to raise money. They ought to sell like books, sets
a
of
roll
these
them
at the
or
end, like
something.
like the post office used to do when a special stamp came out, and they would
Yes.
sell a sheet.
Yes.
That's what you need.
I think it's super cool. I'm always going to be a proponent of kids doing cool things. And if you can combine my also passion of voting with it, then I'm down.
And now your competitive nature of having to get those stickers. How am I going to get those stickers?
I'm going to send some emails later today.
Maybe under the guise of an interview, Jamie, you
There
start
we
speaking
go.
to the clerk. And
Mhm.
you know what? We'd love to talk to you. Can you send some examples over? That would be great. And then just cancel the interview.
There we go. I wouldn't do that. I'd still have her on the air
All
because
right,
we
still
talked
have
to
her.
her about it.
Of course we would. That would be fun. So yeah, we could do that if it makes you that. Oh, Ron can't take our cackling. Yeah, Ron, God forbid that we laughed about something. Why don't you go cry in a corner somewhere? Boo-hoo. They give the stickers out for voting twice, says Steve in Mount Horeb. I don't know if that's true.
Ooh.
For
All
voting
right.
twice? All right. Well, anyway, it is. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's headlines from the Persian Gulf and from right here in the U.S. of A. This is Daybreak, where we cackle and laugh and have fun on the Civic Media Network.
Wisconsin wakes up here. Back to Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
7:06 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it. If you're listening in Madison on WMDX or in Wausau on WXCO or in Richland Center on WRCE, we are glad that you are joining us this morning. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. If you want to join in the cackling and hackling and just overall fun and frivolity of the program, or if you just want to complain that you guys are having too much fun, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. You have to have fun because things are getting crazier and crazier in the Middle East. We know about that. So let's check some headlines from the area. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammed Bagher Galibaf. Sorry, I should have taken the names. Usually I give you the ones with the names.
That's what we
Said
were talking
Wednesday-
about while you're gone.
Said Wednesday, and I'm also out of breath from running up the stairs. Anyway, Take two. Iranian Parliament Speaker said Wednesday that a ceasefire in negotiations with the U.S. on ending the war is unreasonable, as he accused the U.S. of violating 3 of Tehran's 10 conditions for an end to the fighting. It comes as the not-yet-day-old ceasefire appears at risk of fraying over significant disagreements between the parties.
Turns out that maybe the ceasefire was not all it was cracked up to be as we get more information. But in other headlines, Israel has pushed forward its war against the Hezbollah militant group in Lebanon, striking dense commercial and residential areas of Beirut without warning, killing at least 112 people and wounding hundreds of others.
And going back to the ceasefire, all sides have presented vastly different versions of the terms. In one instance, Iran said the deal would allow it to formalize its new practice of charging ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, which the White House said U.S. President Donald Trump opposes. And just a quick reminder, as we talk about this, the Strait of Hormuz was open with no tolls prior to the U.S. deciding to start bombing Iran. So just keep that in mind. When the president starts yapping and yapping, it was wide open. It was part of the deal that President Obama had put in place. But, now we're here.
But here we are.
Here we are.
And remember, 20% of the shipping materials, including oil, and go through the Strait of Hormuz worldwide. So as you're, filling up your gas tank at almost $4 a gallon, there's a reason why that's happening. China's defense ministry has denied reports that it offered support to Iran's military, including alleged intelligence on U.S. forces' location amid the war. The defense ministry spokesperson said in a briefing earlier today, quote, "We firmly oppose the dissemination of speculative and insinuating false information targeting China." Wasn't Russia accused of doing the same thing?
Yeah, but Russia admitted it.
Okay, all right. Does that make it better?
No, it makes it worse because then
okay.
we continued to hang out with Russia.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
It just keeps getting worse.
It keeps getting worse, and it's like, all right, we must know everything now. But no, there is always more, Parker.
It's a wake-up call in more ways than one. Time for some you need to know.
Cackle, cackle, cackle.
This was the big question. Would Pam Bondi, after she was fired from Attorney General, would she still need to answer her subpoena to Congress? And former U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi has answered that, saying she does not plan to appear for a planned interview with the House of Representatives committee on the release of the Epstein files following her firing by President Trump. She was subpoenaed last month to testify in her formal role as Attorney General, rendering the demand invalid now that she no longer holds a title. That's what a Justice Department official wrote in a letter to the House Oversight Chairman. They disagree with that, though, the House does. The Republican-led House Oversight Committee voted to subpoena Bondi for questioning on the Justice Department's compliance with a bipartisan law passed in November that required the DOJ to release nearly all of its files on Epstein. Well, lawmakers have complained that redactions in the files appear to exceed what is allowed in the law, and the Justice Department publicly released names of victims in some documents. Spokesman for the House Oversight Committee said the panel will contact Bondi's personal lawyer to discuss next steps regarding scheduling her deposition. The panel's top Democrat, Robert Garcia of California, threatened to begin contempt proceedings against Bondi if she did not appear before the panel, a move that would require Republican support to advance, because what the Democrats and what other people on the committee are saying is, yes, we subpoenaed her as the Attorney General, but she has to answer as an individual who was working in the Justice Department. Right. So,
well, they made the Clintons do the same thing. I mean,
well, sure.
Right?
They make everybody do it. But, unless you're Steve Bannon, then you go to jail for a little while for contempt, and then now it's going to be stricken from the record, maybe.
Was this part of the plan? I mean, I understand what the administration keeps telling me about.
They don't seem smart enough, Jamie. I mean, we all keep. It makes sense that you ask that question, because a lot of it does. You can't connect the dots without a lot of
This looks so convenient that they suddenly just removed her, and I get what they've been saying, that she wasn't prosecuting people who Donald Trump wanted prosecuted fast enough. Those things weren't happening. Turns out that, the law is a pesky little thing that kind of gets in the way. But this looks convenient to me because there's no way that this administration and this president wanted Pam Bondi sitting in front of a congressional panel answering questions. Not that I think that even with an oath, she probably would have told the truth. We've seen her do that numerous times.
She would have talked about the Dow. We would have gotten the numbers. That would have helped.
But I feel like this is very convenient to me, just based on the timing and everything that is happening in the world.
And this may be its own separate plan. I don't know how it's connected to the big plan, but they may have made another crucial legal miscalculation when they think that she doesn't have to. Well,
Right.
if we get divorced, if I fire you, you're not going to have to answer the subpoena anymore. Well, that may not be the case. So she still could end up there. And all of a sudden, perhaps her loyalties aren't what they would have been had she been
Right.
in front of that committee while she still had a job. I don't know. But there is still, the Epstein file thing, as I mentioned earlier in the show, is not going to go away. This will
No.
be adjudicated at some point. It's shameful that nothing has happened so far, but I do believe that somewhere down the road, this is going to be fully brought to light, and people will pay.
Do you think that there'll be any tension between Congress and the Justice Department over something like this? Because Republicans also voted to subpoena her. They also voted to have her on the committee and subpoena her. So this isn't like it was a very partisan thing. The subpoena wouldn't have been issued because the Republicans hold the majority, obviously, because they hold the majority in the House on this committee. So do you think there'll ever be any sort of tension between the Justice Department and Congress based off of Congress's need to get some sort of input and information from the Justice
First of all, at
Department?
some point, the Justice Department will go back to being the Justice Department and not a tool of the president. The Justice Department is supposed to be an independent agency that does nothing but enforce the law. The reason that to answer your question, no, there won't be friction, is because this was all part of the Republican campaign. They thought they would get all kinds of Democrats snagged up in this Epstein thing, and they're not. There's names coming in, and they had the Clintons come in and testify and the whole thing. But Republicans were going to release every file, and that's just another lie that some people who back this administration so fervently are not willing to forget. And so I think in this instance, the Republicans on that Judiciary Committee are going to stay in lockstep with the Democrats. It will be a bipartisan push to get to the bottom of this because it was so important to them, as it should be.
Speaking of the Clintons, whatever happened to that testimony? We saw the videos. We know that they went in and they did their depositions. Did anything ever come of that? I haven't seen anything.
It was theater. It was all theater, and it led to nothing because, first of all, Hillary Clinton owned them.
Yes.
And then
you
Bill
knew she was
Clinton went in.
going to.
Right. And then Bill Clinton went in and not only discounted everything they said, but also then defended Hillary. So they got nothing. And once they got nothing and were embarrassed, then they just let that drop.
Which
It's
is
fine.
which is what this particular GOP does most of the time.
Yep.
When they get
Yeah,
nothing.
make a lot of noise, grab everybody's attention, and then move on.
In other headlines from Stuff You Need to Know, Fleet Farm has joined other Wisconsin-based companies in suing the Trump administration to recover tariff payments following that U.S. Supreme Court ruling. Now, Fleet Farm's suit, which was filed just this week on Tuesday in the U.S. Court of International Trade, says that the Appleton-based retailer paid an unspecified amount of tariffs on imported goods. The company, that's known formally as Fleet Farm Wholesale Supply, LLC, wants the payments refunded. The lawsuit cites the Supreme Court's February 20 20th ruling that President Trump lacked any sort of authority to impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act without congressional approval. Now, Fleet Farm actually operates 50 stores in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Fleet Farm had around 500 employees at its Appleton headquarters in 2019. It joins at least 15 other Wisconsin-based companies that have now filed similar lawsuits with the Court of International Trade. Well, yeah, they want their money back. It was an illegal. They're illegal tariffs. We all want our money back for the
How
tariffs.
can they want money back that they didn't have to pay? Jamie, the other countries pay for those tariffs. And I know I love what now people go, you don't know how it works. I know. I do know how it works.
That's the sarcasm part.
Yes, a lot of the gullible sheep did not know how it worked and believed the gaslighting BS that was being forced on them that the other countries are going to pay for this. Well, if other countries were going to pay for it, why are all of these U.S. companies now suing and trying to get their money back?
And why are you paying more every time you go pick up something at the store? It's all related, is all we're saying.
Well,
there's dots to connect here this morning.
And if you don't see it, you ain't looking. So 10 Wisconsin Democratic state legislators wrote Republican U.S. Rep. Brian Steele the other day, urging him and the GOP majority in Congress to take control of the war in Iran in reaction to the social media messages that went out, civilization being destroyed days. The lawmakers sent the letter after Trump posted on his social media platform that a whole civilization will die. We're writing to you with an urgent request and to express our grave concerns for the safety of our country and civilians around the world, the lawmakers wrote in the letter to Steele. This was the letter was led by Assembly Minority Leader Greta Neubauer, who's from Racine. The letter went on earlier today. President Trump warned the world through a social media post that a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran fails to meet his deadline, the letter stated. This appears to be an explicit threat to commit unimaginable atrocities against civilians. Congress must act and stop the president's actions. In addition to Neubauer, the letter was signed by Democratic state reps Christine Sinicki, Brienne Brown, Ann Rowe, Clint Anderson, and Angelina Cruz, Tip McGuire, great name, sounds like a professional golfer, and Ben Dempsted, and Democratic Senators Mark Spritzer and Robert Wirch. So, of course, we know that we didn't end civilization.
If you think that Brian Steele is going to stand up to this president, you are sadly mistaken. This is the same guy behind the Make Elections Great Again Act, or known as the MEGA Act. This is also the same guy who said, quote, "We protect our beer more than our vote." You can look that up, by the way. He did actually say that.
Well, I can't argue with him there, Jamie.
You could write all the letters you want. He's not going to have a backbone and stand up to the president. Not happening.
I know, but sometimes getting on the record can be enough.
It's important. It's important. I get it.
Oh, if you don't like cackling, don't stick around because Swipe or Stay is next, and we will probably laugh and have a little fun. That's what we do. It's Daybreak. I'm Brian Noonan.
I'm Jamie Martinson. You are listening to the Civic Media Network. We jump into Swipe or Stay. Mr. Plow King has a beef with you this morning, Frank, over on
What's the beef?
YouTube. He says your outfit confuses him this morning. Quality hat, awful shirt.
I lived 15 minutes from Ann Arbor for 5 years. I grew up in the city of Chicago, well, the suburbs of Chicago. I now live in Chicago. I am a Cubs fan. I've been to like over 20 Michigan football games amongst other sports. There you go, Mr. Plow King.
Mr. Plow King.
I'm a professional.
Cubs hat, Michigan shirt.
Looking out your drip.
It's like Parker's worst nightmare, basically, that he gets to stare at right now.
And Parker's wearing a Badger jersey today. It's like, I didn't know it was Sporty Day.
Yeah, Frozen 4.
Brian, everyday sporty day. Yes, Michigan takes on Denver tonight in the Frozen Four, and then Wisconsin takes on University of North Dakota.
Yes, it's a big day.
There we go.
Big day. Hopefully we don't have to play each other for national title because there will be fists.
Oh, fisticuffs.
There will be blood.
I
drink your milkshake.
Parker is no longer apathetic when he says that.
Yeah.
What happened to that laissez-faire attitude, buddy?
No. I stand up for my sports teams, Frank. You know
Well, good
this.
for you.
Go.
Anyway, let's move on to Swipe or Stay.
Yeah, let's get to it.
I'm going to read some headlines. Brian and Jamie are going to have to decide whether or not to move on to the next one and swipe or stay and hear more about the story. So, let's move on to story number 1. Former Olympian takes legal action against estate of their late assistant.
Ooh. I like some intrigue. I'll stay.
I'm going to stay.
What former Olympian am I talking about?
Is it Bruce Jenner? No.
It is Caitlyn Jenner.
Jenner.
God, Brian is on a roll. Caitlyn Jenner is taking legal action against the estate of her late assistant, Sophia Hutchins. Jenner filed a claim against the estate, claiming her friend and manager owed her $439,095. $439,095.88.
Get that 88 cents. Round
Get that
that up.
88 cents, pal.
Round that up to the dollar.
Prior to her tragic death in July at the age of 29. The document broke it all down, so there were furniture purchases in excess of $250,000 on Jenner's credit and debit cards, along with payments on eBay and Shopify. Hutchins also allegedly received over $7,000 in cash advances from Jenner. The estate has already agreed to pay it back.
She has an estate? Wow. All right.
Seems pretty young
I
to
think
have an
you
estate.
like everybody has an estate, right? Mine just has nothing in it.
I was
I was
just
going to say,
I
you
have
get
nothing
this.
in it.
You can take my
Yeah.
hoodie.
Well, he's got some Captain America memorabilia. He's got a lot of beer-themed
All the
apparel.
beer stuff.
He's got that Tulane bead necklace he got from.
Well, I don't know if that's part of my estate. That might.
Okay.
That's at a shadow.
Yeah, he doesn't even
corporation.
own that part.
No.
All right, legendary basketball coaches have made up.
I don't care. Swipe.
Swipe.
Major news channel apologizes for a celebrity death hoax.
Oh,
Stay.
I don't know this. Yeah, stay.
This is new.
Oh.
CNN has had to apologize for publishing a package on their website with the title Remembering the Life of Michael J. Fox.
Oops.
Oh.
Very much alive.
Not only is he alive, a rep for Michael J. Fox said Michael is doing great. He was at Paley Fest yesterday. He was on stage and was giving interviews. He actually had a public appearance and everything. While
He was with the cast of Shrinking.
Yes.
Correct. A CNN spokesperson told TMZ the package was published in error. We have removed it from our
Really?
platforms and send our apologies to Michael J. Fox and his family. So the only conclusion is they have had this in memoriam
Yes.
package
Oh, yeah.
locked and loaded for Marty McFly for who knows how long.
Maybe
Probably
they were
since
just
he was
tired of holding
diagnosed-
on to it. So let's
Probably
just
since
air
he
it.
was probably since he was diagnosed with Parkinson's would be my guess.
And
Just in
just for
case.
everybody knowing, he was diagnosed in 1990. He came out to the public with his diagnosis in 1998.
I'm gonna say
They've
they've
just-
been holding on to it for a while.
It's like the sports commentators that have been sitting on the take that Tom Brady should retire and was washed
Yeah.
up, and they just held on to that take for
Yeah.
10 years. A little bit morbid this time, but you get the drift. All right. We have a closer look at a sports journalist's marriage.
Well, this is a continuation of yesterday, I'm assuming, so I want
It-
to stay.
I'm going to swipe just because Parker got so excited. I'll let him
Parker,
break the tie.
don't let me down.
Frank, you know what I texted you last night. I'm staying.
Parker and I are so enthralled with this. I have
This is
not
a
been
great
this
story.
It is so good. And let me tell you, it's so good that even other major sports outlets are picking it up. It's not just
Yes.
tabloids, TMZ, page 6. Mike Florio on NBC is talking about it.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. We never usually talk about other journalists because, you know, they're in the same profession and all whatnot, especially their personal lives. But Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel's story is the best thing not on television. Actually, it is on television. There's a clip of Rossini on the Stu Gotting Company show from February when she claimed her own mother felt her relationship was falling apart,
Wow.
speculating her husband was seeing someone on the side while she's on the road for work. And then there was another clip from Get Up on ESPN where she says she's married to someone average, but if she had tied the knot with someone beautiful, he'd be all over her social media pages. So
Whoa.
Wow.
what came across as
Whoa.
jokes in the past, like nobody gave that any
Right.
attention.
Oh, I'm sure
Well,
her husband gave it attention.
Well, when she even said, she goes, I got to stop ragging on my husband. But now we're going back and looking at all this, being like, oh, Diana.
Yikes.
Wow.
This is better than any this is like real life soap operas. This
I
is great.
Sent at least one meme to Parker last night.
Holy
And I enjoyed
cow.
it. Yeah.
Yikes.
Wow.
That swiper stay for today.
Holy smokes. I liked it. Thank you, Frank. That was
You're
a
welcome.
good one. Wow. Imagine your Mrs. Frank or Mr. Allison telling you that you were just average. Anyway, when
She'd
we
be
come
right.
back, we will talk about all the referenda that were on the ballot on Tuesday. Some passed, some didn't. This is the Civic Media Network.
Local voices, statewide impact. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
7:35 right now. We hope that you are having a great start to your morning. A little sunshine across the state and some warmer temperatures today. We will take what we can get. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. Now, you know, much of the attention on Tuesday's election was on the state Supreme Court race, but voters also had to decide on funding referenda for dozens of school districts throughout Wisconsin. Preliminary results from across state show that of the 75 referenda questions, 46 passed, and a lot of those passed by very, very slim margins. Here to help us take a closer look and make some sense out of it all is Jimmy Koska. He is the Civic Media Sports Director, also a news contributor, and he's a member of the Boscobel School Board. Jimmy, thanks for being here this morning. A lot going on with these. So let's talk about the margin of victory first in some of these. How tight were some of these referendum measures?
You know, it's amazing because the last few years here at Civic Media, when I've added these up, I've noticed a trend of some very tight margins with these. And I was tracking things that were maybe 100 votes or fewer that kind of decided some of these referenda. But this year, for this election, I was really surprised at just how tight it was, and especially in a couple of places. Now, a lot of the referenda this cycle were smaller school districts, especially in northern Wisconsin. And for a lot of districts, these were operating referenda. The vast majority were operating referendum that really just help keep the lights on, pay for staff, keep services, keep the lights on. These are not, we're building a football stadium, we're not adding to the school, especially in an era of declining enrollment. This is for a lot of school survival. And with the results, when I looked at it, one of these passed by a single vote in the unofficial tallies from Tuesday night. Another passed by just 2 votes, Butternut and Shell Lake, respectively. And when I looked further into some of the close margins from the past few elections, yeah, it's a trend. I mean, these are really tight, really contested. And as a school board member of myself, when we did a referendum, we had taken a survey of what level, of funding the community would support. So the question was asked at different levels, like, would you support 30? Would you support 20, 10? Just to figure out where people might set it to. And everything we were told by the person that put together the poll and analyzed the data was that if you try to go above what the community is telling you they will support, it is almost guaranteed that you will fail. So we actually went in just under what the community said they would support, and ours ended up passing by about 80 votes. Well, we weren't alone in this in the last 3 years, because in this week, we saw, besides the 2 that passed by just single digits, under 83 votes, Gilmanton's passed by 83, 11 passed by 83 or fewer votes. And those are really outstandingly tiny margins where if you look at it as a percentage, that's within, about 5 to 10 percentage points. So, the margins were very tight for a lot of the ones that passed, as are some that failed. Some failed by fewer than a couple dozen votes as well.
Jimmy, from your perspective as a school board member who's gone through this process, who is tracking these referendums, how difficult is it for these districts to keep going without this money? I mean, especially, we were talking about Boscobel. How difficult would have been for your particular school district without the voter support?
A lot of districts, it depends on kind of the finances of the area and the property values and things like that. It's really complicated, and we could probably spend the entire show talking about school funding and how it's done. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a math guy, but I've had to learn a lot about it in 4 years on a school board. It's probably the most important thing to learn, to be honest with you, because people have to ask that question, like, well, we already have high property taxes. How could a school need more money? And you have to explain to them just how the funding formula works between property values, enrollment, things like that, and it's really complicated. There's not really a simple way to boil it down. But if you look at a lot of the districts that did try to go for operating referendum, they were smaller rural districts like the one that I'm in. And for this cycle, a lot of them were really looking at this as a matter of survival. In fact, for a couple of them that failed, and I think especially one of them, Hustisford, is probably going to be the one that you look at in this cycle. Consolidation or dissolution are now very squarely on the table. In fact, Hustisford has come out right out and said they have to transition next year into consolidation and dissolution because there's no way to keep operating at what they have. Some of the smaller districts that did see it fail, I think of, like Siren or Lena or some of these smaller ones where the referendum did pass. Winter's another one. They post that that's not the option they want to pursue, but
Right.
Financial reality is they can't operate with no fund balance or cash reserve. The reality is without the operating referendum, they don't have the money to continue operating long term. This is not unique to these districts in this referendum cycle. I think pretty much every small district in the state is facing this. There's declining enrollment at about 3/4 of all rural school districts in Wisconsin, according to data from a couple of years ago. It's probably updated since then, but just in the last couple of years when we went through it and looked at the data, we were one of those districts. We had seen our enrollment drop in our district by over 100 in just 5 years. And we're talking a matter of going from like 800 to 700 students. So it is a problem that's facing everybody. I know for our district, we are one of the fortunate ones that has had, strong, financially policy. So there was a very large fund balance to draw on and cash reserve, but that only lasts so long. And some schools aren't as fortunate as they've had to dip into that instead of having an operating referendum to pay for things. So there are some schools that don't have that. That's why they were looking at operating referendum and why some of them are now posting those big, strong words like consolidation and dissolution in their referendum messaging.
Jimmy Koska is our guest. He's Civic Media's sports director, also our news contributor, and he's a member of the Boscobel School Board. Let's talk a little bit about this consolidation, Jimmy, because it's not a thing really in Wisconsin yet. I would have thought in order to stop that, it would have spurred more of these smaller districts to back the referendum. What do you make of this? The districts that said, listen, if we don't get this funding, we're going to either have to dissolve or consolidate, and it still didn't sway enough voters to get them the money they needed.
I think that with recent reassessment of property values, for example, especially again, as we talk about in northern Wisconsin, rural areas where they reassess properties, it reduces the mill rate to a point, $4 in some places, $4 mill rates, which means that the schools can't, with the tiny enrollments they have in some of these places, where people don't live in some places in northern Wisconsin, area I'm from, they don't live in these areas permanently. They don't have kids going to schools. It means they can't draw enough in local money to fund their operation. That's why they have to go to referendum. There's not another lever to pull. This is all they can do. And unfortunately, in places like Winter, it means that the referendum is asking for quite a bit per student, over $10,000 in some cases per student. That's a big number. And, when local taxpayers see this, maybe, knowing that, their taxes are going up anyway because of assessments in the last few years, post-COVID assessments have, in some places, more than doubled the property values of some places. And local taxpayers just can't handle it, especially because it's not just schools that have to go to referendum. We're seeing cities, we're seeing counties go to referendum to pay for basic essential services like EMS or having a fire station that isn't 100 years old, or just enough money to just fund the things that keep cities moving, right? And if you go to some places, you look at some cities, some municipalities, not only do they have referendums on the table for a school and they see the mill rates increase for that, but again, it's those basic shared services like police and fire and things like that if they don't have the money for, they have to ask in a referendum. They have to build a new community pool. They have to do all these different things. And in property taxes as a result, if you've looked at any of the polling here from Marquette University, for example, when they've done the law school poll, for the last 4 or 5 years, it's really flipped to become very strongly where people are more in favor of lowering property taxes than paying for public education. They've asked this question for a couple of decades, and you can just see the flip in that to where that number has gone up, the property tax support has gone up, and the number of passing referenda has gone down.
How much pressure, as a school board member yourself, how much pressure are these school boards under knowing that a vote could come down to just a few ballots? I mean, we mentioned the districts where it was only one ballot. We saw several referendums like Dodgeville. This was a referendum on the ballot. This time around, it had been on the ballot just last election. So how much pressure does this put on the school board members at this point?
It does put pressure on school boards and administrators because in a lot of these cases, this isn't the first time they've got a referendum. I mean, a lot of these schools, Dodgeville is a great example. They put up a question just about every year, and they keep adjusting the number to what they can actually do. I mean, there's been a lot of cuts. Almost every single one of these that I looked at, there were 75 ballot measures on Tuesday. Almost every single one of them cited that in the operating referendum that they had already taken steps. They've already made cuts. They've already gone through and eliminated some services. They've already cut, they don't fill staff positions when they come up if somebody retires or resigns. They've already taken some of these steps. For a lot of them, it's the financial responsibility part of it. That's what a school board's responsibility is. How do you manage taxpayer dollars? Well, in this case, there's a point where there just isn't enough, and that's why they go to this. This isn't easy for somebody in an elected position to do. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. It wasn't like it was super difficult for me because we looked at the need and saw that our school hadn't had a facilities update in 65 years. We had kids going to a building that was 125 years old where I was inside on a tour and I could see outside from inside. That's not good. So
history, Jimmy, it's history.
Yeah, definitely historical, but you're supposed to be inside in a closed building, right? But these are very, very big realities that are being shared across the state by any number of school board members that show up, whether they're new, whether there's somebody that's been on the board for 30 years. I think everybody's in the same boat. That's why you're seeing some unusual, unprecedented steps of administrators, for example, from an area, sending letters to elected officials in the legislature saying, look, we need something to change. Whatever is happening now, it's just not sustainable. I'm one of those people. I don't think it's sustainable to have this referendum model because you're literally taking the school funding issue and you're asking people in your communities who are already seeing their property taxes go up, already seeing referenda for all the other shared services. Now they're being asked to step in and fund schools on top of it. I don't see that as sustainable. So what's going to happen? Well, we're going to see it in Houstonford where they have to this next school year operate with bare bones, just the bare bones mandated classes with almost no support staff that they are mandated by law to offer. They also now are saying they have to dissolve after next school year. So they got the rest of this year. They're going to go through kind of a transition year where they're up to even offering some tuition share agreements to send kids to other districts so they can learn. And then they would dissolve. And what happens in dissolution is, I don't know, I know there's not a lot of time here to explain it, but it's not like the taxes go away. Now you're just paying your mill rate for a whole different district, and you locally no longer have a say in that issue because now you're at the mercy of another district and what they do and paying their mill rate. So you lose that local control. And now, especially if you're living in this community, you really lose, especially in these smaller towns, you're losing the backbone of your community in a lot of cases.
We only got about a minute left, Jimmy, but Troy from Mount Horeb, texted this question in. Can you ask Jimmy what he says to people against the referendum who talk about school districts being too top-heavy, too much administration?
I will say this, in a small district, having just 5 administrators, I see what they have to put up with on a daily basis. I see our superintendent helping out in special education because there just isn't enough staff to go around. Administrators don't just administrate in most of these small districts. They are coaching, they are refereeing, they are working with your special needs students. They are everywhere. And I can't thank them enough for all the work that they do. Any educator, teacher, para, librarian, anybody working, custodian, bus driver, you have my full-fledged support because I know how hard things are right now. It is not a matter of administrators not doing whatever it is they think they're not doing. I can give you a lot of examples of people going above and beyond.
Jimmy, thanks a lot. And if you want to read Jimmy's whole breakdown, go to civicmedia.us and read all about what Jimmy talked about with these referenda. Jimmy, thanks very much. Good talking to you. We'll talk to you again. When we come back, do you remember your commencement speaker? Do you remember their message? We'll figure it out. It's Civic Media Network.
Want to join in on the conversation? Call or text 855-75-CIVIC. Now back to Brian and Jamie.
It's 7:52 right now. We hope that your morning is off to a great start. We've made it to Friday Eve, which means we only have a couple days left in another week. And boy, do we deserve a weekend, because it's always a week as far as the news cycle goes.
I'm not going to hold out hope that it's going to be a restful weekend. Things have been very tumultuous all week.
They have.
But if you are a student of a certain age, you are looking forward in the next few weeks, commencements will be everywhere. And this is a question for you. 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Who was your commencement speaker? Do you even remember anything that they said? And what's the fascination with celebrities now and big name commencement speakers? Because the reason I ask this is James Patterson, the author who's behind the Alex Cross series of books and a lot of other things, was announced just the other day. He will be UW-Madison's commencement speaker. Parker, who did you have at your UW? Was Whitewater?
I did. I went to Whitewater. I have absolutely zero clue. I believe it was an alum who had just happened to do well in life.
Well, there you go. Was she inspirational?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
No,
all
see,
right.
nobody remembers. Nobody remembers. It's such a big deal. Oh, my God.
I was playing New York Times games on my phone.
There you go. Well, yeah, those commencements are long, they're really long. Mr. Plow King says over on our YouTube chat that Oprah was the speaker when he graduated from Roosevelt University.
Good for
Says
him.
he doesn't remember any of the speech, but she left as soon as she was done speaking.
She didn't sit on the stage in her honorary gown? And that's bad form.
No.
You stay for the whole thing.
He also says all he really got afterwards was, an alumni letter asking for money.
Yep. Well, welcome to going to college. That's how everybody goes. Who was yours, Jamie? Any idea?
I have no idea. I graduated in 2001. You're lucky I remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So no, I have no idea who our commencement speaker was at all.
Ours was Virginia Marmaduke, who was nicknamed the Duchess. She was one of the first ladies of journalism. She worked 35 years in Chicago, and then she spent the rest of her time back. She was born in Carbondale and spent the rest of her time in Southern Illinois. So instead of being like on the society pages where they used to relegate women reporters, she actually was covering crime, corruption, politics.
Cool.
Yes. I don't remember one word she said.
No.
I
but
remember
at least you
who
remember
it was.
Who she was. That's
well,
important.
I remember that because I worked at the radio station, which was an NPR affiliate. I worked at the TV station, so I had met her and I was familiar with her work. That's the only reason I remember. And then I saw, like the other day, we got a notification. Tulane this year, Sterling K. Brown is going to be speaking at Tulane. Yeah, but why? I mean, yeah, it's cool. I like Sterling K. Brown. I like his work as an actor.
Right. But why are they speaking at a commencement, and what does that have to do with the graduates? No, I it's like when Taylor Swift, and this is no shade, Frank, because I do love Taylor Swift. Maybe not as big of a Swiftie as you and your lovely wife, but when she speaks at these commencement addresses, because she's done so in the past, and then they make them an honorary this or that. I'm like, okay, good for you.
I
don't know why.
If it was someone who I knew, I would be ecstatic.
Sure.
Yes, I guess that's true. When Molly graduated from Tulane, it was a New Orleans author, and I can't remember her name, Jasmine something. She had just published another bestseller. She's a very well-known author.
Sure.
And I don't remember the specifics, but I remember listening to her commencement address and thinking, this is really good. This makes sense. And I know people like when a president comes or a top-tier celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
James Patterson, big author. His wife is an alum of UW-Madison, and they donate a lot of money. So that makes sense. But there was a big thing. The year after Molly graduated, they were going to have Hoda Kotb as the commencement speaker, who is from New Orleans.
Yes.
Who started her whole career in New Orleans, talks about New Orleans, has pretty good career. Hoda's done pretty well for herself.
Love Hoda.
My God, the parents went crazy that she wasn't a big enough name. That
What?
they wanted, well, this place has Tom Hanks or somebody else has, the president. We get
Hoda's
Hoda
not good
Kotb.
enough for you?
Not for some. Not for some of the hoity-toity bougie jerks. And if I had
Did they
been
want
Hoda,
Did they want JoJo Siwa, like a Harvard Business School?
Oh no,
had?
no, no. They wanted I guess a more marquee name, but Hoda Kotb, everybody knows who she is.
Wow.
Yeah, and I would have told everybody to go pound sand then, but Hoda stayed true. She came and did it because that's her
love it.
hometown, and she did by all reports a
I
great
bet you
job.
that was an amazing speech from Hoda.
Oh, I would imagine, especially now because she's got she had something to prove.
Yeah. Yeah. I
She wanted
could
to tell
imagine
everybody
that
that-
was fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you another question. Are you a fan of James Patterson? Because, I mean, it's cool that he's an author, but for some of these students, they might not have ever picked up his book to even know. And I think it's great that he and his wife have donated so much money to literacy-focused programs. But, I mean, if you're some of these students and you have no idea or have never read his book, do you even care that it's James Patterson?
No, you probably Google who it is. If you're in those programs, you probably are because you know how much they've donated and how much they've done. They've given over $240 million.
Yeah, it's a
and
lot.
he's legit. He's got all sorts of awards. He is 10 Emmy Awards, an Edgar Award, National Book Foundation Award. So he's legit. But I don't know if I'm in business.
He's
Maybe
my
not.
airport. He's my airport author, my travel author, because his books are always good. You never want to put them down while you're on a plane, but at the same time, you don't have to think that hard to get through them, right? But they're entertaining at the same time. The First Gentleman, by the way, that came out in 2025 that he wrote with Bill Clinton, that's actually my new favorite airport book.
Oh, is it a good one?
It is. I like that one. I do appreciate it.
I've read a bunch of his stuff. I've read some of the Alex Cross stuff.
Yeah.
I like him, but I don't have to flip my tassel anymore. That was done a long time ago. And Parker, no, not a euphemism. When we come back, it is headlines as we cackle our way through the final hour. If you're listening on WMDX, see ya. Follow us on the, just jump over to the stream. You can still listen to us here.
That's right.
It's Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
From Lake Superior to Lake Michigan, this is Wisconsin's Morning Conversation. Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Civic Media Network. It is 6 minutes after 8. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. Welcome to the third hour of the program. Don't forget, you can always, if you were listening in Madison on WMDX, you can always follow along anywhere with the Civic Media app, and you can stream it, and so you can see our smiling faces on YouTube and the Civic Media Facebook page, and coming very soon to a Facebook near you, the Daybreak with Brian and Jamie Facebook page, which is already up, but soon we'll be able to stream this very broadcast.
There's so many rules about that, right? Like we had to get to 100 followers first, and then once we did that, now we have to wait for 60 days before we can. It's so stupid. What is Mark Zuckerberg actually doing with his time that he has to make this hard?
I blame Russian bots.
He's slathering on sunscreen, and he's just trying to get things done to make the world a better place.
Sure, that's what we'll go with.
Yeah, that's what we're going to go with because reality is not any more plausible. We checked some headlines from the Persian Gulf. The Iran war about to start another week this Saturday. Some headlines. The chief of Iran's nuclear agency has said that protecting Tehran's right to enrich uranium is, quote unquote, unnecessary for any ceasefire talks with the United States. The Atomic Energy Organization leader of Iran made the remarks to journalists, including the AP in Tehran, during commemorations for the slain Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It is part of the necessary things that nobody speaks about, he said, referring to the U.S. refusal to acknowledge enrichment as one part of Iran's 10-point plan for a permanent ceasefire. This ceasefire, as you know, is already hanging on by a thread.
Yes, and I'm watching news here this morning in the studio. It sounds like Congress will take up the War Powers Resolution Act next week in hearings and on the floor. So something, I guess,
next week.
Yeah,
I guess next week is okay.
Well, aren't they still on break? They might still be on break. Are they back? I don't know.
No, they're not back. I think this week. Well, this week they're still off.
Okay. Well, that would be why it'd be next week, because we wouldn't want to actually be in Congress and do our jobs. In other headlines from the Middle East, condemnation of Israel's largest strikes on Lebanon since the war started is mounting. Iran and Pakistan insist Lebanon is part of the ceasefire deal, but the U.S. and Israel claim the agreement doesn't actually cover Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed shipping through the critical Strait of Hormuz stopped following Israel's massive attack on Lebanon Wednesday, which Iran said was a ceasefire violation.
And John over on YouTube this morning says 9-month breaks are important when we're talking about Congress. Yes, they are. And finally, in headlines from the Middle East, Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner will go to Islamabad for talks beginning Saturday. Tehran's delegation will arrive in the city Thursday night. Iran's ambassador to, at least that's according to Iran's ambassador to Pakistan.
Well,
now,
we're sending the A-team over there. That's top. That's some top-tier negotiating talent right there, Jamie.
Well, at least we're sending people, because yesterday it wasn't even clear if we were going to have anybody represented during those conversations. So,
well, that's because JD was busy in Hungary stumping for Orban, who has the blueprint.
Him? They're not actually letting him come home. They're actually just diverting him from Hungary to. I'm sure that's what they're doing.
Let's keep putting him in harm's way. That's the thinking. So good for that. Well, Witkoff and Kushner did such a great job keeping us out of the war in the first place. I think they're just over there looking for new money-making ventures for the Trump family and regime.
Let's be clear and honest about this. What has Jared Kushner said about Gaza, though, for so long, and a war in the Middle East, and what that would mean for big, beautiful land to develop, right? Yep. I mean, if you're skeptical of what is happening, much to your point, which is why I bring up Gaza, these are comments that they've made publicly in interviews about being able to develop land in the Middle East. Yeah, this isn't a secret.
They're not really good at playing their cards close to the vest. That's what's so amazing. They tell us exactly what they're going to do, and people choose not to believe them. That's
it's
just
like
dumb.
5-year-olds on Christmas who just opened their Christmas stocking, and mom and dad told you not to quite open it yet until everybody comes down from, for the day. I mean, that's essentially what they're like. Like, they're so giddy they actually can't hold on to the information and make sure that, maybe they don't tell everybody what the plan is.
Well, they're so arrogant they figure they'll get away with it no matter what, and that has proven to be the case. So they're not too worried about it. All right, well, that's what you needed to know from the Middle East. But Parker, there's stuff that we need to know here.
It's a wake-up call in more ways than one. Time for some you need to know.
Well, this story is a little bit confusing, but try to hang with me. Wisconsin utilities have joined an effort to curb power line competition. So, as you're driving up, you see the power lines everywhere. Well, there have been repeated failed attempts by some of the state's largest utility companies to eliminate out-of-state competition on these big energy infrastructure projects. Several of those companies have now asked federal regulators to suspend competitive bidding rules for such projects in several states, including Wisconsin. Proponents of competitive bidding immediately blasted this as tone deaf. They say, hey, man, everybody's paying a lot more for their energy rates, and an effort by utility companies to strengthen their monopoly on the nation's power grid is just power grab and money hungry and not correct. 9 transmission companies, including American Transmission Company, ITC Midwest, and Xcel Energy Services, which serve customers in Wisconsin, filed an 88-page complaint with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission targeting the Order 1000, a rule adopted in 2011 that lays out competition rules and planning processes for high-voltage power line projects. The companies assert that the process for soliciting bids for certain regional transmissions projects enforced by the Midwest grid operator and Central U.S. grid operator are, quote, unjust and unreasonable. They assert the solicitation process can delay large-scale transmission projects by as much as 20 months. A 1-year delay in construction costs will increase them by about 20% for every $1 billion spent. So they're trying to suspend competitive bidding. They want to be able to if you're in the state, that's who gets the contract and nobody else. I didn't even know this was a thing. So the more you know. But yes, this is this is another thing we're going to deal with here in Wisconsin.
I knew this was a thing only because at one juncture in life, when my husband needed to get out of radio, he was a federal employee for the Department of Energy. So
Okay.
I knew this was a thing because he worked with the big power lines. So he worked for a division called WAPA, the Western Area Power Association. So I knew this was actually a thing. But really, if you're listening to that story and you're like, what the hell are we talking about? Well, here's what actually matters to you. This is about your monthly bill, because some of the biggest utility companies serving Wisconsin are asking federal regulators right now to ease up on competition when it comes to building some of these major projects, which means there's going to be less competition. And of course, when there's less competition, Brian, we all know what
They
happens.
can charge more money.
That's right. So that's why you need to be paying attention to what's actually happening, because for us, the consumers, it's going to show up in a whole lot of ways. There's going to be higher infrastructure costs that are going to get passed on through your electricity bill. So whether you're running a farm, whether you have a small business, whether you're just, trying to keep your house warm in the winter, cool in the summer, you're going to probably end up paying more if this is something that actually goes through. Bottom line.
Interesting. Well, that's what we need. Pay more.
Aren't we? I mean, how much more do they want us to pay for our electricity?
I think they're just going to start taking our paychecks straight to utility companies and the government, and then giving us like a little allowance.
A summary,
Here's what you need
like
to
allowance
eat.
for groceries and
Yes.
for anything else. Okay.
It'll be like the SNAP program. You'll get $6 a day for your meals because everybody can survive on that.
Sadly, I would like to say that that's hyperbole. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm like, I could actually see that happening down the road, and I hope I'm wrong. In other headlines from stuff you need to know around the state, Iran told mediators that it would limit the number of ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz to around a dozen a day and charge tolls under the ceasefire struck by President Trump, showing Tehran plans to tighten its grip on the world's most important energy shipping lane. Speaking of those higher prices, ships that pass will have to coordinate with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the powerful paramilitary group that has been labeled a terrorist organization by the United States.
Yeah,
wow.
man.
And the European Union, at least according to Arab mediators. Now, 4 ships were allowed to pass yesterday. That's the fewest so far in April, according to S&P Global Market Intelligence, which is down from more than 100 a day before the war started. Iran is requiring ships to work out toll arrangements ahead of time and then pay the fees in cryptocurrency or Chinese yen, mediators and shipbrokers say. Iran's demands show how it has used the war to create a new source of leverage and potentially revenue. It seized control of the waterway during the fighting by targeting ships that tried to pass without its permission. The possibility of Iran's permanent role in the administration of the waterway is alarming the Gulf's energy producers, who rely on that strait for the bulk of the exports, and to energy consumers across Europe and Asia. The U.S. is still pushing publicly for a free and open strait, but Iran isn't showing a willingness to loosen its grip.
You think?
Wow.
Tell me again how we won this, how we're better off than we were a month and a half ago when we started bombing Iran for no provable reason other than a feeling that some old man who seems to be a little bit off his rocker had, because there was no evidence of any sort of threat. And remind me again, Jamie, the strait was open with no tolls, let's
correct.
say 2 months ago.
That is
Ships could
correct.
just pass through them. No big deal.
Do you know why? Because President Obama actually worked that deal out back in the day. So
Don't like him. He wore a tan suit.
he made
Not a fan.
sure.
Not a
He
fan.
made sure that, goods and energy supplies for not just the United States, but globally could actually continue to pass. We've got John chiming in over on our YouTube chat this morning saying the U.S. can be considered a terrorist organization now. So there's that.
You got that going for you.
Also
which is
going
nice.
on and saying that Trump and his cronies are making money hand over fist. So they're winning while the rest of us suffer. And you can't actually disagree with that, because Iran is now setting a new normal, and this president has no idea how to combat that.
No, we lost. There's no other way to look at it. We lost. Now he's floating the idea that we will work with, it'll be a partnership so that when they're charging a toll, we'll get half. I don't
doing
think
it in
they're going to
crypto.
work with the infidels. You know,
They're doing
They're
it in crypto.
yeah, this is and yen, which tells you, who else? It's the story we did in last headline. Who is helping?
Didn't we just say
Iran?
that China said that they're not helping Iran? I don't know. Dots connecting once again this morning.
Again, so and just real quickly, the woman who sold the ketamine to Matthew Perry that caused his death finally was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She was called the Ketamine Queen. She admitted to running a stash house for illegal narcotics out of her home in the North Hollywood district of Los Angeles. She sold that to Matthew Perry, the ketamine. He died at age 54, so she got a 15-year term as the federal prosecutors had recommended. So good riddance, too bad rubbish. Man, oh man, we talk a lot about healthcare. How big a role will it play in the election? We will talk about that and so much more after this.
It is 8:19. It's 8:19, and you're listening to the Civic Media Network.
Got to be on your toes, Jamie.
All facts, no fiction. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:22 right now. We hope that your morning is going well so far. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Civic Media Network. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. You wanted to get in on the action, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Healthcare, we've been talking about healthcare forever. There was the Affordable Care Act. Hillary Clinton tried to do healthcare. We have a concept of a healthcare plan under this administration. It's been coming out in 2 weeks. That was 10 years ago. But that's neither here nor there. But when voters talk about the economy, part of what they worry about is healthcare. It's obviously higher prices on other things, but healthcare is becoming out of reach for a lot of people, which means access to prescriptions, access to proper healthcare. It's all becoming out of reach. It's been the number one issue since in the 2018 midterms. Everybody was fighting over the Affordable Care Act. So now we've done it. Democrats historically, that was their bailiwick. We always cared about healthcare. We did it. And listen, the Affordable Care Act is there because of a Democratic president. That's the way it goes. And if we keep calling it the Affordable Care Act, then the people who voted against it are going to go, I thought it was Obamacare. I don't like Obama. I like the Affordable Care Act. And yes, I know I did the voice. That's how it is. That's how I hear those people arguing.
I think it's fascinating that so many people, even this many years later, I mean, we're almost a decade past, right?
Yep.
Who still don't understand that Obamacare is the same thing as the Affordable Care Act. And it's just like here in Wisconsin, people will say, well, I don't have Medicaid. Are you on Badger Care? Then you have Medicaid. I mean, it's the same
why don't
concept.
they call it that?
Right.
I don't know, Forrest. Why don't they call it that? Frank's going to yell at me now. You can't say that. You can't do that. Well, so how big an issue is it going to be in this next election? They're saying this is going to be a major concern. Now, the Democrats should have an edge because they've already the plan that's still in place, tenuously, is a Democratic plan, and the Republicans have proven time and time again they don't have a plan. But will people once again vote against their own self-interest, as we saw them supporting getting rid of Obamacare, despite the fact that they were firmly entrenched in the Affordable Care Act? And then it was like, wait a minute, buyer's remorse set in because they realized they didn't read the fine print and see that it was the same thing. And now they're getting kicked off their coverage too.
And I think this election is going to be interesting especially as we approach the midterms, because as you mentioned, Democrats usually have the advantage on health care because voters trust them on that issue. Republicans, on the other hand, usually have the advantage on the economy, but this economy is not good, right? And people are not only paying more for health care, but they're paying more for everything else as well.
Jamie, what are you talking about? The economy is hot. We're the hottest economy, the greatest economy ever.
So right now, and I get there's people who are going to not vote for their own best interests because that happens every election, especially in the last 10 years. We've seen it more and more. But at the same time, I have to wonder how independents who don't really trust either party on any issue are going to swing in this particular case, because as we know, independents are usually the ones who basically make
vote
or
for
break
Jill
the
Stein and
election.
screw everything up.
Well, that's just it. And so that's just the thing. Like, are they going to swing wildly for one party over the other? Will they just sit that one out? I think that's going to be the question, because healthcare and the economy are not great right now.
Well, if you're going by numbers in Wisconsin, you can't afford to sit. You can't afford to sit any election out. You definitely can't afford to sit this one out. 85% of people in Wisconsin say healthcare is a key voting issue. 70% say they're worried about hospital closures. 85% in some areas like Eau Claire, and especially in rural areas where we've seen hospitals and doctors' offices and everything closing, they're especially concerned about losing local hospitals. 1 in 3 have been denied care by insurance here in Wisconsin. 7 out of 10 people have experienced medical debt in their family. So there's no luxury of sitting this one out. And if you're in Wisconsin and you're hearing these numbers, you're thinking, well, then whoever is giving me a way to keep myself and my family healthy and keep my access to health care, they're the ones I need to vote for. And so going back to what you said about the Republicans usually having the lock on economic issues, they don't anymore, thanks to the person at the top. So this is the time to really put party aside and look at yourself and go, if I get sick, what's going to happen? If my kids get sick, do we have the hospital that used to be 5 minutes away is closed? Where are we going to go to the hospital?
I think from a voter's perspective, too, when you look at this, I think voters are really sick of both sides using healthcare as a campaign issue. And both sides use it as a way to rally voters. And it's not something that's been fully fixed. I mean, the Affordable Care Act was just the first step in 2018. And all Republicans have tried to do is demonize it, tell us that it's bad, and tell us that it's socialized medicine. That's what they've been doing since 2018. Like, get a new shtick at this point, right? But this isn't just policy. For a lot of people, this is personal, because if you can't afford your medicines, this is personal. If your local hospital is closed and you're now driving 45 minutes just to see a doctor in an emergency, that's personal. And whether you can take your kid to the doctor about worrying about what the bill is going to be when you get it, because there are some people who will actually skip that because they're so worried about having another bill come in the mail every single month that they are not going to be able to afford, that they are actually skipping care. And I mean, we live in one of the most advanced countries in the world, and yet in 2026, we still can't figure out healthcare. Like, what are we doing?
Well, we're profit driven. Everything is about the bottom line.
Insurance
There's nothing.
companies.
It's money and insurance. This is another stat that came from polls here in Wisconsin. And again, you take them for what they're worth. 67% of people say they trust hospitals. Only 6% trust insurance companies. That number seems high to me. That seems like 5 numbers too high. But yeah, it just we got to make the money. So instead of caring for our people, we care about our profits.
Yeah.
All right. When we
Always
come
about
back,
the dollar bill.
the farm bill. How are you guys doing? How are you guys doing on the farm with that? Talk about that and so much more. It's Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
Now back to more of Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:35 right now. We hope that your morning is off to a great start. If you are in La Crosse listening on WLCX, or in Wisconsin Rapids today on WFHR, or in Hayward in the Northwoods on WBZH, we're glad that you're joining us. My name is Jamie Martinson.
I'm Brian Noonan. Welcome. If you are in the farming industry, I'd like to hear from you about this story, because there's some things that I'm not quite clear on because it comes in the fine print, and I want to know how farmers are actually reacting to this. 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. We know there's a new farm bill for 2026, and in that farm bill, there's a plan to help farmers pay for new technology, which sounds great. They're focusing especially on AI and precision agriculture tools. Farmers could get 90% of their costs covered, which is higher than the usual government support of about 75%. Those tools that they're talking about include GPS-guided equipment, yield monitors, farm data software, and connected devices, often called the Internet of Things. These tools collect and share large amounts of data about farms, including soil conditions, crop yield, and equipment use. Now, all that sounds great, right? I'm not a farmer. So to the layman, you go, oh, this is great. The government's going to help you pay for this. You're going to get this. It's going to help you immensely on your farms. Well, as with anything, once you get AI and other technologies involved, there are some concerns. And one of the main concerns is the rules for how this technology works. Because as we've talked about with the company that was dealing with the Pentagon and all of this, with Claude and their AI, the rules are set by the private companies instead of the government, which means companies, not the farmers or regulators, could control how data is collected, how it's used, and who benefits from it. And that, of course, has people worried that it's giving big tech companies more power over farming decisions. So I'm wondering, if you are a farmer and using this, does this matter to you? Is this a concern that you share? Because to me, I'm a big fan of privacy and not giving out the data. So this would bother me, Jamie.
This feels like there's more risk than reward to it, right? Because, and I understand, every industry is getting more high tech. Farming's no exception. Big operations, I think, especially in places, if we're looking at just Wisconsin and central and the eastern part of the state, are already using things like GPS tractors, data tracking, and automated systems. So, I mean, for them, that's kind of that kind of support might lower costs up front, especially if you're talking about things like fine-tuning your planting or your feeding. But I think if you are looking at this in the long term, especially for the small and the mid-sized farmers, I mean, they're focused on things like, easy stuff, input costs, milk prices, crop prices, labor, weather, because I don't know, weather's kind of a thing here in Wisconsin. Those are things that can make or break a year for a farmer. So I think for me, the question becomes, when you're looking at it more long term, does adding more tech actually solve problems, or is it just another weird layer to the top of everything else that the farming industry has thrown at them on a daily basis?
One, I think technology can 100% solve problems. There's, if, again, just going by what it says that this software can do,
sure,
it seems like those are problems that would be taken off a farmer's plate. And now, the question, I think, is how much are we willing to give up to solve those problems?
Yeah.
What's the compromise we're willing to make? How much? And, we see family farms struggling all over. Is this information going to help these corporate farms increase more than a family farm and then result in more corporate farms gobbling up these smaller farms? If that's the case, then it doesn't matter how much they helped you in the short term, because in the long term, your robot overlords have turned on you. So it's going to be up to each farmer to make that decision, I think, on their own, and say, okay, unless everybody comes together and says we're not comfortable with this, and then you have a standoff between the government saying, okay, we want to use your software, but we want it this way, and the company's saying, well, no, this is the deal. This is what if you want to use it, this is what you get.
Right. Now, speaking of the government, they actually would be using taxpayer money to help fund this shift through programs like the EQIP. That is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. And this was originally developed to support conservation practices like improving soil and water use, not high-tech systems. So then there's going to have to be a shift in the programming as well, and probably the guidelines and the rules. Not that this is something this administration is going to do, that's ever stopped them at all. So I'm saying that that's not a barrier. Now, there's some who say that this is a mismatch, though, because AI systems and data centers can use large amounts of water, require significant energy, contribute to pollution. We know the story of the data centers, right?
Oh,
we know the story.
With the data centers.
we know the story. But some of the critics of this agree with you, saying that there's privacy concerns, Brian, because this farm data would be collected and controlled by the corporations and not the farmers. And of course, farmers have seen similar problems before with equipment and seed companies. Now, in equipment, companies can actually restrict repairs, which then forces farmers to pay for service even on machines that they own. And when it comes to seed companies, some farmers must buy new seeds each year and have even faced lawsuits over patented crops, because we're trying to make things so easy for our farmers.
Well, I mean,
for the corporate
I'm good
farmers,
with that.
we are. I mean, for corporate farmers, it sounds like we're making things easier. But I mean, for this mid-level or your family farms, none of this is easy. All of this seems like a much harder task for them. And when I think about, the fact that, okay, the government's going to use, they're going to give them the startup money for this AI technology, who helps maintain that once it's purchased? I mean, if your farm is operating on that equipment and something happens, because it's still technology, there's still upgrades that need to happen. It's still machinery that then needs to sometimes be replaced. Who helps maintain that then for the farmers? And again, I agree with you.
Good
Big
question.
corporate farmers are going to have no problem maintaining, but
Also,
your small ones will.
And here we go again, starting to put on our tinfoil hats. Usually the government, as I mentioned earlier, they'll support a program 75%. They've upped this to 90%. What's the incentive for the government to really be pushing this so much that they're going to fund 90% of it? I don't know, maybe nothing. Maybe it's just a better program. Maybe the government is being benevolent and really for once is trying to help the farmers by saying, we know this is expensive, but
Are
we
they,
really
though?
No, of course they're not. But I'm just playing devil's advocate for a minute.
Farmers are always pawns for each political party. I mean, they're one of the pawns of the voting base that these political parties. But yes, I digress. Go ahead, finish your point.
No, that was my point. My point.
mean,
Listen, my point was the government is not trying to help, but I'm wondering who's making something extra off of it. What's the kickback that the government is willing to spend that much more money to cover the costs to get it in? And then what's it going to cost a farmer? Because Lynn texted in, she's listening to WCFW, she's in Golden Valley. She says, I assume like Tesla, that these tools are going to require subscription payments at least yearly. So what is that going to cost the farmer? And once you've been in it, and let's say your trial period is up and you realize, I can't afford this anymore. Well, guess what? They've already gotten a lot of your information.
Yeah.
So there's not enough info here but the fine print is where the devil's in those details. So
here's the other thing that I keep going back to. I know that, and this is just in my head, and this is just me thinking, but we've also seen this administration go to war, literally, with AI companies. I mean, we're watching Anthropic play out, right? I mean, is that part of the reason? I think Pete Hegseth probably wants AI for more of his war tools, but that doesn't mean that this administration wouldn't use that type of AI functioning for programs like this, too, which might be why there's been such a push in that direction, and coercing or strong-arming might be a better word.
Sure.
Some of these AI companies into working with the federal government, because then they have their hands in that as well.
All right, I'm going to say this and know that I don't really think this is happening, but in the far-fetched world we live in, is anything really off the table? That if this continues to go and the future becomes these AI companies controlling farmers rather than the farmers controlling our agriculture, we can control the food supply. We can control who eats what, where. It sounds science fiction-y, and yes, it could be. I'm nuts, but I'm sleep deprived, and these ideas just come into my head. But that's the question. What is coming in the future? If farmers have given over all this data, and now the tech companies can pretty much do it without you, and they do, where does that leave everybody? Not just the farmers who are going to lose their farms, but what about the rest of us? They're going to decide. You want Robert F. Kennedy telling the tech companies what they should plant so that we can eat it? No, thank you.
It's a dependency, right? It's kind of like they're building some sort of, it feels like, and again, who knows, but it feels like there's some sort of dependency being built toward that technology that then benefits the government in some way versus the people.
Well, we find out what crop is being exported the most and what crop is needed in the rest of the world that would pay high dollar for. And then that's all we're producing. We're producing for export to make profit. So a few people are making a ton of dough.
Sure.
And the rest of us are not. And, I know how crazy this sounds. I honestly do. But then think, is it just based on how things are going now? In the short term, it doesn't seem that crazy.
And I think about the people involved in this administration or who have been in the past, right? It doesn't seem crazy when you think about it. Here's the one thing, though, that I would question. Have they thought about Wisconsin weather? Right? I mean, honestly, because you could have the best data in the world, but if you get a late frost, you have too much rain, you have a drought, that's essentially what's going to decide a farming season. And technology can help you react, but it's not going to control those outcomes. And, as far as if you really want to connect things back to a particular administration, this administration doesn't believe in climate change, so they're not doing anything to make any of this better for anybody.
Hold on.
But this is why farmers, I think, are skeptical, because this won't remove the biggest risk that they face on a daily basis. I mean, I know plenty of farmers right now in my personal life that are pining as to, should they be planting right now because the weather's nice? Should they be in the fields already? Should they wait because there might be cold temperatures coming? These are things they look at.
Well, with all the data they would be collecting, you can also theorize that, all right, well, will there be advancements in seeds that it won't matter if there's a certain amount of fluctuation in the weather? Will we be able to program certain variables out of the agriculture process where we can develop things that will grow in bad winters here in Wisconsin, or scorching heat down in the Southwest, or things in the desert?
Well, they don't believe in science, so
they don't believe in science, but I'll tell you who does.
The
The software companies believe in science because they're using it all the time. Because math is a science, right? Sure. Yeah.
We live in a scary world.
And it's getting even scarier because Reese's peanut butter cups have been jerking around with their recipe, and now things will be set right. We will explain.
So much to say.
Yes, we're gonna get to it with that and more as we hit the final segment here on Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
Fairly solid, better than expected. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:52 right now. We hope that your morning is going well so far. A beautiful start to the day in parts of the state. So hopefully it's as sunshiny and gorgeous where you're at. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And you sure?
No, I'm not at this point.
I'm Brian Noonan. Welcome. 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842 is how you get involved. And we were talking about the Farm Bill and the fine print in the Farm Bill. And Jamie, we got a couple good texts to wrap that topic up before we get into how Reese's is really screwing up.
Yes. Tiffany from River Falls, listening on 93.5 The Tap in Eau Claire, says, it seems pertinent to talk about the fact that J.D. Vance owns stake in a company called Acre Trader, and they facilitate the sale of farmland to foreign investors. Maybe this is connected to the controlling of the food supply. I forgot all about his stake in that company, so I'm so glad that Tiffany reminded us of that. But yeah, I think that is this administration is all about basically making sure that they are making more money and making sure that they are getting their hands in things versus doing what's best for people. It's all about enriching themselves. So I think that's a legitimate argument to bring up for J.D. Vance. I'll let you read the one from Tyler, Wisconsin.
Tyler, I like
Rapids.
this. He wants to get to Agriculture Agent Mr. Kimball from Green Acres in Hooterville's office option. I would like to hear that, too. I want to know what Mr. Kimball says to us. And then we got a text from a new texter who was listening on WXCO. The working man voted himself out of the middle class, and the farmer voted himself off the farm. And those both tragically are ringing
Yes.
more and more true every day. All right, listen. We've been dealing with heavy stuff all morning.
Yes.
It's time to talk about the important issues. What is going on with Reese's? Things have been screwed up. Well, now they're being put back because instead of cheaper coatings, which Reese's has been doing, and then Reese's is a subsidiary of or a product of the Hershey Company, and they've been using a cheaper coating instead of better chocolate. And you can taste the difference, especially if you're using the eggs. Like if you just got through with some Reese's eggs, it's got that waxy, cheap chocolate feel. Not a fan.
No.
Well, Brad Reese, that name sound familiar? It does. Brad Reese has gone public and started blasting Hershey for using different ingredients, and so they are going back to the original recipe for all Reese's peanut butter cups starting in 2027. So you have 8 more months of eating garbage, and then you'll get the real deal back.
Here's my thing. This kind of goes back to the new Coke fiasco for me, right?
Yep.
Like, you have a recipe that's working for people. Why are you trying to change it? I get it.
Cost.
Chocolate is expensive. Cocoa is expensive. So I get it that you are trying to save some money, but that's not why people buy your product. They don't want the cheaper stuff. And here's the thing that I hate when Reese's tries to do things like the shapes for the holidays.
I like those.
But here's my thing. I am a connoisseur of the ratio of peanut butter to chocolate that Reese's uses, and then when you get the eggs or you get those badly shaped
Christmas
ones,
the pumpkins.
Are they a Christmas tree? Are they? Because we've seen
they're
that
a triangle. They're a triangle, but wow.
But
all
then-
right.
but then
Take
the
all my
peanut
whimsy away, Jamie. I'm trying to experience some
peanut
joy.
butter to chocolate ratio gets all messed up.
This is a good point.
Okay, Parker's
There is
agreeing
more.
with me.
I will say, yes, I agree. There's more peanut butter in like the Reese's egg than there is in a Reese's peanut butter cup. For short term, for a seasonal, I don't mind it. I go, but listen, can we also stop with all the craziness? Can we just go to the original peanut butter cup? Chocolate and peanut butter. Two great tastes that taste great together. That's what it's supposed to be. Now,
Why screw 'em up?
Hershey's also claims that if consumer taste, well, don't cater to consumers because consumers are dumb. They like waxy chocolate. Real chocolate lovers like chocolate, creamy chocolate, which is why they're also going to make Kit Kats creamier, which is good.
This is
That
all
is
good
good.
for people. This is all good if you were a chocolate person. Now, the company says that they plan to increase research and development spending by 25%. Why? You don't need to. Just go back to the original formula. You don't need to overthink this. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, a Hershey bar has been a Hershey bar since there were Hershey bars. You keep the same thing. Now, I will say, to go back to your ratio of peanut butter to chocolate, have you had the little Reese's eggs that come in like the old school milk container? And those are not chocolate covered. Those are the hard candy covered.
Yes.
And it's almost all peanut butter, and they are delicious.
They are delicious. I do like those a lot. I just don't like it when you start messing with a traditional thing that everybody knows and loves, right? And I agree. Shapes for the holidays are fun, but at the same time, when you start messing with the ratio of how it's all going to work out, then
I'm
I get a
about to
little
say.
skeptical.
I'm about to say the bougiest thing I've ever said, and you're all welcome to punch me in the throat next time you see me in person. The chocolate that we eat here is so substandard based to the
it's so
chocolate
bad.
in Europe.
Yes.
Ireland chocolate is the Cadbury over there is not like the Cadbury we have here.
No.
It's delicious, creamy, milky. Oh my
Yes.
God! I would kill a puppy to get some of that chocolate.
It's amazing.
I know. I was waiting. No reaction from Jamie. She's like, yeah, okay. What are you, Christy Gnome? Parker, thank you for having a conscience, Parker. Thank you for stopping me on my rampage.
I was mesmerized by the conversation of creamy chocolate because that's where my mind was going.
Yes.
I would 100% agree with you on the fact that in other countries we are subpar as far as not only chocolate but a lot of our food products. Yeah. Honestly, we are completely subpar here in this country.
Good for Brad Reese for taking this to the streets and letting people know and arguing that if something works,
Why fix it?
mess with it.
If it's not
Don't
broken,
mess with it.
there's a saying about that, right? If it ain't broken, don't fix
Right.
it.
Well, we're going to try to fix this, stop our cackling for tomorrow's show. We're done for today because we've talked chocolate, we've talked politics, and we've talked cackling. So I'm punching out. I'm ejecting from this this ship, Jamie.
You know, today's one of those days I think a lot of people are going to be happy that we are. So there's that. But we're glad that you joined us today. We hope you'll be back again tomorrow. It is 8:59 right now. This is Daybreak on the Civic Media Network. Have a fantastic day.